So, hello, Nicole. Thank you so much for coming today and talking to me about your own story and about the FOXG1 Research Foundation. I really appreciate it. So, I am Jo Bichell. I'm a neuroscientist. I am also the mom of a grown son with Angelman syndrome, but I am the director of Combined Brain. And FOXG1 Research Foundation is part of Combined Brain. And today we're going to learn more about FOXG1 mutation, about you and your family and your story. So if you can, Nicole, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much, Jo, for having us here and for having FOXG1 Research in Combined Brain. And it's just such an honor to work with you. I've been following your story for years. And I think I told you when we first met, I first saw you speak at NORD and cried and had chills. And so I am so grateful to be here. So I am Nicole Johnson. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the FOXG1 Research Foundation. And this is a job I never in my wildest dreams thought I would have. It's all motivated by my daughter, Josie, who will be 10 years old next month, November, which is actually also FOXG1 Awareness Month. So Josie was born in 2011. And at the time, and she has an older brother named Tanner. And at the time, it was pretty clear early on that she wasn't developing the way Tanner was. And, but we had a little bit of an odyssey, a diagnosis odyssey at the beginning. It took us 2 years to find a diagnosis for Josie. And we went through every test under the sun, everything. I remember putting out an email to everyone I knew in search of Dr. House, who can help me figure out, because every test came back normal. She's fine. But yet, at 6 months, she wasn't sitting up. At a year, she still wasn't. And she's now almost 10 years old and she still isn't sitting up. So, so it took us a long time, 2 years, to find out that Josie has FOXG1 syndrome. And that is a disorder she has. And what that means for Josie is it's a severe genetic neurological condition that greatly impacts her brain development from birth. So like I said, Josie's almost 10. She still cannot sit up without falling over. She can't even really crawl. She can scoot around in a circle really well. She obviously can't walk. She can't stand on her own. She can't talk. She is fed with a feeding tube and she suffers from epilepsy. So I always say it's like head to toe. Head to toe, there is something with Josie. She's severely cognitively and physically delayed. Really, she's at the level of a 1-year-old, although I believe cognitively she's completely in there. So it's a real doozy of a disorder. And so that's where our journey with FOXG1 began.
So, right when she was born, did you know there was something the matter?
Nope, I really didn't. It was not, I knew she was doing things I thought it was just a little slower than her brother did, but it wasn't really until 4 months when she just wasn't tracking with her eyes. And I said, hey, he definitely followed. So we started down the road with the eye doctor. We even patched her eyes at that point, thinking we can strengthen them. And then in 6 months, she failed her milestones checkup with flying colors. And that's where we started getting MRIs and started doing genetic testing. But at the time, they did genetic testing for how she presented. So if FOXG1 was not on any panels at this time. So everything came back normal. And then, at a year, I'm like, it's clearly not normal. All the testing under the sun until I learned about whole exome sequencing. It was so new.
I want to back up a little bit. So her MRIs were normal?
They were.
Wow.
And you know what? In now looking at them, they actually weren't. But at the time, I was told they were normal. Now, when they're looked at more closely, there was thinning of the corpus callosum.
Oh, I see.
Mhm.
So delayed myelination is another way they put that.
Exactly.
So
Right.
how was her feeding? Was she able to eat in that first few months?
So I was breastfeeding her and she wasn't really thriving. So, and I had this goal. I wanted to do it for a year, just like I did with my son. And around between 4 and 6 months, the doctor said she's just not gaining enough weight, which is, part of FOXG1 syndrome. It's, her being below the charts in everything basically was very much in par with the condition. So I stopped, I introduced formula but she was feeding pretty well. She wasn't choking, she was able to swallow. And when I look back at pictures, in the first year or two, I'm almost like, wow, she seemed to have more strength then. Maybe because she's holding her head up really well. So that's just something interesting. So, to answer your question, it wasn't that obvious at the beginning, in the first 4 months. But then it was crystal clear.
So I'm asking kind of a lot of questions about those first few months because we're trying to figure out ways to help people get faster diagnoses. And so I'm gonna dwell a little bit because I want to see if I can find out if what Josie and you went through would fit into the same kind of way of thinking. So did she have hypotonia back then?
Yeah,
When she was little?
yeah. So that would be a diagnosis: global delay, global developmental delay, and hypotonia was something the doctors would diagnose her as. And she did start early intervention for PT and OT. So she certainly, where I said she seemed stronger in those years, I mean, relative to how she is now. She held her head up better. Maybe she was just had less to hold up. But yeah, no, she definitely had hypotonia. And one of the first clues also was cortical vision impairment. So she was, she has strabismus. And then it was clear that there was something wrong with her vision. And so we went down the road of discovering this is CVI.
Mhm.
And I actually brought her to Pittsburgh to meet Dr. Christine Roman Lancy, who
Mhm.
is the leader in understanding CVI. So we got her tested so that we could judge her improvement of where she fell on the CVI range. And I bought Christine Roman's book. And then when we started vision therapy, I gave it to my vision therapists and said, do not follow low vision. This is CVI. This is different. And if we follow this book, we can make a difference. And it really did help improve her CVI. So then when we
So
tested
her,
her again, she was much higher on the scale.
huh? So
Mhm.
her vision has improved. I mean, it hasn't gotten worse since she was a newborn. Hmm.
That's true. And I do credit it to understanding the difference of low vision versus CVI and using that therapy
Hmm.
to help her.
Can you talk about that therapy a little bit?
Yeah, so CVI has different techniques that it's really the brain's connection, telling the eyes what to see. So cortical vision impairment is it's not the eyes itself, it's the brain connection. So I remember we used a lot of shiny things. So there's, rather than black and white, which is therapy you might use for low vision, with CVI, you want to use shiny things. I'm trying to remember what else. A lot of cause and effect toys. Finding out which color she does respond to. Um, but yeah, there's definitely probably like 10 methods to follow, and all her vision therapists really focused on that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Now, did
And there's
she?
a great app. There's CVI apps on the iPad, Little Bear Sees.
Hmm.
So anyone whose child has CVI should look into Little Bear Sees. Mhm.
That's good. I didn't know about that one. What about when she was really so right around that 4-month age point when you were starting to really figure things out. Would you have said that she has abnormal movements, and that would be tremulousness in a baby, kind of like a shakiness? Did she have, or ataxia or anything like that that you could have put your finger on, or not really?
Um, I remember more her not being as active, that she just didn't, I remember Tanner being just so much more active, and I was like, Josie's so chill. So she was, I don't remember these movements as much, but I do remember what we used to call eye attacks. So we say, oh, she's having the eye attack again. She's having the eye attack. And it was like, going like that, stiffening and going like that. And it turns out these eye attacks were infantile spasms. And that was another road we went down. And to get infantile spasms diagnosed as seizures is not always so easy. And those infantile spasms turned into grand mal seizures. And that's when we started down the road of, okay, she has seizures. She has epilepsy. And it was a challenge to get them diagnosed so that they could start her on epilepsy medicine. And as you know, as we all know, it's not like you just take one epilepsy medicine and it works. You have to figure out your child's cocktail. What's going to work for your child, and what's the dose, and how long is it going to work? And so we wanted to just start this process. But we went through several hospital visits where, it was clear she was having seizures, but if they didn't capture it on the EEG, they would not diagnose her with seizure disorder. And the first time this happened, where it was, devastating for it to happen the first time, when I'm running in an ambulance with her because she had turned blue and was frozen. And when we finally got her hooked up on an EEG for days, because they didn't capture an actual grand mal seizure, they sent us home with nothing.
Oh God, that's
so I had to wait for it to happen again that badly and she had a seizure right on the table before they put the probes on her. And I said, now, do you believe me? But it wasn't captured. I'm like, but we saw it. They gave rescue meds. So it was not an easy journey at the beginning when the seizure journey started, and we've been through so many anti-epilepsy meds, so many different doses, weaning off one, now we're on a pretty good cocktail. We've had a year of relief here and there. But I would say when the seizure started, that was, when I realized, wow, this is an awful disorder.
Oh, sweetie.
Yeah.
So how old was she when that started? Right after that 4 months?
It was almost like we got her diagnosis when she was just over 2. I remember it was April of 2014. She had turned 2 that past November, and it was like a week later that the grand mal seizure started. Wow. But she had been having those infantile spasms that we called eye attacks. We're like, what's she doing? Taking video of it, sending it to doctors. And, now that I've been in this for so long and connected to the global FOXG1 community, it's like we see it all the time. But for a new parent, this is 10 years ago when Josie was the 93rd person in the world diagnosed with FOXG1 syndrome, known.
Wow.
93. Today we're reaching 900.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
And today it's on the map. So parents are not going through what I went through. It's on the epilepsy panel. It's on the microcephaly panel. Whole exome sequencing is so much more prevalent now. So it's, that gives me a lot of hope that, at least it's known.
So for those 2 years in between when she was 4 months old and when you got the diagnosis, right when she was 2, she was not well. She was having those eye attacks, and she was not learning new physical milestones. Not learning to sit and roll and things like that. So you knew there was something terribly wrong, but you couldn't figure out what it was. That must have been really scary.
It was scary and just desperate. it's just, I always think like, new parents, you're sitting there with your camera, you're waiting for them to do something new. And I experienced that. And, we celebrate little things, really little things. But the thing with Josie is, it's like, while it was so devastating and it was so hard, and is for 10 years, she's so funny. She's so cute. She's so joyful. She laughs almost all day long. We could get a rise out of her. Like, we know how. Like, she loves the same certain songs. If I put on Frozen, Let It Go right now, she will howl laughing. So while this is all happening, we're also learning this incredibly hilarious little girl who, it's almost like a juxtaposition. As hard and as awful as it is, it's as joyful and adorable and so cute. So, so we are very grateful. Thank God for that demeanor. Thank God. There are definitely a lot of FOXG1 children who go through crying spurts, unconsolable crying. And Josie had some of that. But thank God, now I'll say she cries to tell us something. So when she's crying, we can almost be like, okay, either it's her teeth or she's just very, very tired. We have a checklist. But I think she's so smart that she knows, I got to save this.
So she's very connected. You're very connected to her, and she communicates with you in her way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, cool.
It's hard to explain. It's really hard to explain. And then we definitely are. But the truth is, a lot of times I can't get her to make eye contact with me.
Because of the CVI.
Is it the CVI, or she doesn't always want to make eye contact? It could be the CVI, staring off is part of the CVI, which staring off could fit into how many buckets? It could be absence seizures. It could be atopic cataplexy. It could be, it could be CVI. It could be, I'm just bored. So it's like everything she does from head to toe, we have different buckets it could fall under. So a lot of it's a big guessing game. But so she is connected, but then, my sad truth is that sometimes I'm like, I wish you would just look at me, and sometimes she does. And I sometimes know where to move under her eyes to get her to look at me, lock in. And then it might take 10 seconds. And then all of a sudden she just lights up.
There's a delayed response. So you have to be patient. And
I kind of get like under, when her eyes are looking down, I get under her. And I'm like, where's mommy? Like in a certain tone. And all of a sudden, as soon as she locks in, a few seconds, and a big smile.
Wow.
Yeah. Cool. Not always, but a lot.
How is her relation with her big brother?
Oh, she adores him. And you know what? She follows him around the room. I get jealous sometimes. Her eyes follow him around the room. If he gets right in her face, she looks right at him. And he's 14 now. And it's just life as we know it. He said something to me that I will never forget, when I think he might have been around 9 years old. And I was just cooking in the kitchen, and he said, Mommy, isn't it crazy that there's only, say, 200 people in the world with FOXG1, and we got one of them? And I just kept cooking. I didn't want to make a big deal. Tears. I was like, how lucky are we? And I was like, this is life as we know it. I'm going to keep this right here, where if he can say that, and he's had to share a lot of attention. He was a little boy while she was having a grand mal seizure while he's playing a video game, and I try not to let him know. And so it's not easy for parents to protect their other siblings from, the fear. But he's an amazing kid, and we treat it as this is life as we know it, and we're grateful.
And, for me, having a son with Angelman syndrome, what a lot of people who are newly diagnosed ask me how we handle it. And I always tell them today's usually fine. I mean, if you think it's kind of a funny mixture, because of course, I'm thinking about the future. I'm looking for treatments for all these different disorders. and for Angelman syndrome, of course, that's future thinking, but in our family life, we don't think so far ahead. We
Right.
just have today, and today is usually good. It's funny and fun, and there are silly things that happen, and you can have a good day. I mean, is that how you, it sounds like that's how you cope too.
1,000%, that's our mentality. And I love to hear that, because I think it's what keeps us strong. And you have to stay in the moment, because worrying isn't, we're working hard at this.
Mhm.
And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. But it's if you can stay focused in the joy of the moment, you're going to miss out. And that's really all we know is what today is. And so, yeah, I'm really believe in that wholeheartedly. And I wish that on everyone.
So now I'm going to ask you about the future and about research. So you got her diagnosis, she was 2, and then what happened? You must have somehow found out about FOXG1 or met other families, or how did you get into what you're doing now?
All right. So I did meet, there was a network of FOXG1 parents already that existed. And I got connected with them. And, but I realized there was no concerted research effort underway. There was still very little known, but it was nice to join there was a Facebook group of FOXG1 parents. And then I used to keep a blog at the time called Josie's Journey. And my co-founder, Nasha Fitter, in this time, her daughter was diagnosed with FOXG1, and she was reading my blog, and she called me one day and said, my daughter was diagnosed, and I don't know how you're so positive. I want to crawl under a rock. And she's like, listen, she said, I'm a Harvard Business School graduate. I've started and sold my own technology company, which I had done at that point too. There is a way. There are, so many diseases out there that are vying for biotech attention. There is donors out there who want to put their money towards something worthwhile. There's a way to get from A to Z. We could put this strategy together. Would you like to do this with me? So we brought it to a team of FOXG1 parents, and in Europe, and in the United States and all over the world. And we started the FOXG1 Research Foundation. And here we are today. And we started it with really like a startup company. We kind of did the work back approach. And we said, okay, so what is our goal, right? We want a biotech company to come in and say, I'll invest in FOXG1. I'll take you into my pipeline. Well, why are they going to do it? We're a rare disease. What makes us attractive? So we we just called biotech CEOs and asked them, what would make you invest in us? And they told us exactly what we need. And we did the work back approach. So we took these things that they said, this is the only reason we will invest in any rare disease. And we worked back. So it's patient data. They said, you need to have a strong registry. If you don't, we won't even look at you. And so we went down the road to find the right platform, the user-friendly platform, invested a lot of time and money into our patient registry. And we went there. You need to have a natural history study. So we really, really kind of went innovative with our natural history study approach. And that's a whole other long story of how we approached the natural history study. But we figured out a way to do it that could really accelerate the road to drug development by using machine learning for natural history studies. So we kind of looked at the model that exists and how much data is this going to give a biotech company, and is it enough? But wait, maybe we can get 100 times more data with a different approach. And that's how we created the machine learning natural history study model that we're doing with Citizen, now Invitae. What else do they need? They said, you need assets. So if you have mouse models, stem cell lines, if you have all these iPSC lines, that's going to be very attractive to us. And then what we realized at that point is there's variants of FOXG1. So one line, one mutation type is not going to cover, it's not going to necessarily be beneficial for every single FOXG1 child. So what we've come to realize, it's really like a precision medicine platform that we're building, it's the way that we're looking at it is, so we're building assets and models to cover every known mutation category of FOXG1 with mouse models, with iPSC lines, with 3D with 3D brain organoids, human brain organoids. And then we have zebrafish lines so that we can find the right treatment that's going to work for each child. So my daughter Josie and Nasha's daughter Amara, they're almost like at two ends of the spectrum because of their variants. So Josie is on the severe end of FOXG1 syndrome with a nonsense mutation. Amara presents as highly autistic, and she has a missense mutation. So those are two of the categories. So we've built the assets and we built the patient data. And so that's where we are today. And then there's the whole fundraising side, which is the hardest part. But that's where we are today. And we, and have since, this was 4 years ago, put our head down, this is our strategy, built a big team around us, and we have some biotech investment.
You did all that in 4 years. Wow. I thought you'd been around longer than that. That's amazing.
Thank you. 2017, Labor Day weekend. We said, let's do it.
Wow. Good job.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
And we have a ways to go. I mean, Angelmans, you are our mentor. And we seriously, like, we are so grateful for Angelmans to see how much more we have to learn and how much more we have to do.
Well, you guys really power packed what you did. So I'm really proud of you. So I could ask you a million more questions, but I don't want to keep this too long. So we'll have to have chapter 2 another time.
Anytime.
But I do want to ask you why you are part of Combined Brain and what do you get out of collaborating?
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of Combined Brain. It's so brilliant that you've created this organization to realize that we're all working in silos doing the same thing, and how much more powerful it is if we work together. Because if we could, screening platforms, things like that, if there's things that we can learn from each other, that we could share the cost of, and that we can learn that the other organization is doing and it's reaping benefits from it. So there is so much, strength in knowledge, and Combined Brain is such a perfect name because it's all this knowledge combined. And all these tools. I mean, you have fantastic tools for all of us. And one thing that's been really personally great for me is the things that you're opening my eyes to. So there's things that I'm like, oh, wow, we're not focused on this right now. We're not, and just there are different areas that you've introduced me to that it's just so important to be talking to our fellow rare disease crusaders about what they're working on. And it saves time and money and time. I mean, you're helping us not spin our wheels in the wrong place. And that's so, so valuable.
Well, thanks. I'll tell you, I learned so much all the time from all these different members. I mean, that's the fantastic thing about it. It's really very synergistic. What you're doing teaches, 5 of our other groups about something. What they're doing teaches each other. Anyway, it's been, I love it. So, well, I gotta say, we gotta go, but I'm really excited about FOXG1 Awareness Month.
Thank you.
And I am really excited about everything that you all are doing, and about what all of us can learn from you all, and about what you all are doing for families with FOXG1 disorder. So thank you for turning your families, what happened in your family, into not only helping Josie, but helping so many other people too.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do.
Bye.